Hello, can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bernie Chen. I lead the customer lifecycle marketing efforts for Magento, and thank you for joining us on this panel discussion on M1 to M2 upgrade. So many Magento 1 customers are evaluating Magento 2 as a means for staying competitive, as a means for really setting them up for success now and into the future. And what we hear often is that these same customers are looking for more information on how best to approach this evaluation process, how to best approach the upgrade process. And so to that end, I'm actually very pleased and happy to be joined up on stage by a merchant and a partner, I guess, group here, who are actually undergoing their own upgrade right now to Magento 2, and they're going to share with us their insights, their experiences, and some tips on the process that they're undergoing right now. So I want to welcome Martina Steinman, Acting Group Online Manager from Katmandu, and James Dean, Web Development Manager from Katmandu. And for those of you who don't know Katmandu, they're a 30-year-old New Zealand-based designer and retailer of outdoor supplies, clothing, and equipment. And in fact, they're the largest outdoor brand in Australia and New Zealand. Their partner, Balance Internet, we have Director of Strategy, James Horne, and we have Mal Williams, Director of Technology. And as many of you know, Balance is a Magento solution partner and one of the leading Magento solution providers in APAC, with offices here in Magento, in Australia and New Zealand. So welcome to all of you. Martina, let's start with you. Just can you tell us a little bit about Katmandu, your business, and how long you've been with Magento?
Yeah, so Katmandu, as you already mentioned, is an outdoor retailer. We consider ourselves first and foremost an outdoor brand. And I guess to Kate's point in earlier conversations, the why of why we're doing business is really about making that product that can take you from the office to the top of the mountain and give you the confidence to go anywhere in the world. So we're specializing in adventure travel, gear and equipment, equally as apparel. In terms of journey, we've started out on eStar. We've moved from eStar to Magento 1 back in 2011 and have been on Magento 1 since then for the last 7 years, before we've decided to move to Magento 2.
Fantastic. Before we get specific to Magento 2, can you describe to the audience a little bit of the strategic and perhaps technical reasons for needing or wanting to upgrade in the first place?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk more to the strategic reasons, and I'll let James talk to the technical ones. So from a strategic perspective, our business has been in 3 geographies over the last couple of years, Australia, New Zealand, and we've had a physical and online presence in the UK as well. So we've got over 160 stores in Australia, New Zealand, and an online business here that makes up about 7% of our total business. We've expanded in the European space in the last year as well as internationally. So we've moved from the UK into Germany, having both a physical presence and an online business in those areas. And we've also expanded online only in the US and in China with Tmall Global. So with that global expansion in mind and following our capital light expansion strategy, we needed a platform that actually allows us to do that. We've also wanted to unlock a couple of opportunities in customer segmentation to allow us to do the things that we wanted to do. Magento 1 was running at its limits at that point in time. And we've had a lot of operational inefficiencies with a global wholesales business coming on top of our direct-to-customer business that we just can't support with the current Magento 1 and are looking to upgrade.
Great. Hey, James, are there technical aspects for needing to upgrade at the time that you did?
Yeah, well, Martina covered a couple of them there. I think a lot of it has been to do with our international expansion aspirations and really butting up against the boundaries that Magento 1 will afford us. So a few constraints around content management, content strategies. We'd already done a huge amount of work customizing the M1 platform. Currently, we've got a bespoke Silver Stripe integration with Magento that allows us to do a lot more with content, but still there's limitations to that. So yeah, merchandising, operational efficiencies, international growth, the big marketplace presence that we've got going into Magento 1 at the moment, where we've Legoed up a huge amount of customizations over the years, And now when it came time to reassess and look at a replatforming exercise, and Magento 2 wasn't the single platform that we analysed either. So we had a huge analysis project to look at multiple e-commerce platforms. But Magento 2 in the end ended up being the logical choice for us, both from an actual fit, expertise in-house, and also the roadmap ahead. So a lot of those customizations that I mentioned before, we'd be looking to remove and go with an out-of-the-box approach. So that growth and change and stability in the platform is something that we're looking forward to leveraging for the business moving forwards.
Can you expand on that? So you looked at other platforms. You've decided Magento 2. Can you expand a little bit and provide perhaps some specific examples of why Magento 2 and what were the reasons for choosing Magento 2?
So we looked at 3 platforms: Magento 2, Hybrid, Salesforce, Commerce Cloud. Went through a massive analysis process across all 3, leveraging insight from the likes of Gartner and Forrester, et cetera. Huge analysis projects against all 3 platforms, and when it came down to a good couple of thousand analysis points that we looked at across each of the 3 platforms, the level of equality between the 3 was generally pretty equivalent. So whereas Magento might be ahead in one area, as one of the other platforms might be ahead in another, but on balance, it no pun intended.
No pun intended.
It all kind of levelled out in the end. Looking at just the core competencies and capabilities of the platform, great. Ticked all of those boxes for us. But as I touched on before as well, I think some of the roadmap that's been published for Magento 2 and knowing what's coming in the pipeline, things that we're definitely keen to leverage in the future.
Specifically, like what?
PWA functionality that we've already heard about today.
Yeah.
That's going to be key. That's something that we'll definitely be playing with as soon as possible.
A lot of operational elements as well, capabilities that the teams in the trading team, for example, don't have at the moment, like being able to schedule changes on the website. And the more you go in a global market, the more you have to schedule your changes in the right time zones, but you can't really expect people in New Zealand to work in US hours as well as European hours, as well as Australian and New Zealand hours. So it allows us to do a lot more things by integrating, and I don't want to take too much away, but integrating better data analytics as well and using them as a trigger to automate certain actions on the website and actually driving product recommendations, etc.
Fantastic. So James, Horne, and Mal, with your experience with Magento 2, are there other facets or other aspects of Magento 2 that has been compelling for the clients that you've talked to?
Yeah, just touching a bit further on the BI piece, I think there's a couple of sessions on Magento BI, and it's definitely a compelling piece in the puzzle for a lot of retailers is that data analytics piece and how that's going to fit in to the current state of Magento 2, but also the future state, particularly on how it's going to drive personalisation and customisation around the customer journey, but also the product display journey. So that's one definite thing that we use as part of this project. Another piece, I think, just touching on the staging and preview, but also some of the elements of the Magento ecosystem. So when I was talking to Jolan, who's one of the leads in the project, it was about the 3-year view and what Magento was going to offer in that 3-year view, and that 3-year view included order management and POS and a whole lot of other elements that are in the Magento ecosystem, so they could grow into the ecosystem and grow into the elements, whether it be Magento BI or order management or some of the other pieces that are coming in. So I think that roadmap view, that digital transformation 3-year view, is what a lot of people are now choosing Magento 2 for.
Yeah.
I think from a technical point of view, looking at the features that Magento has invested in within Magento 2 around performance and being able to do things like shard the database out so that you can segregate your administrative tasks from your order flow or sales tasks that are happening on the site. I think a key one that's really resonating here with Katmandu was around the automated testing. So the testing that's out of the box with Magento, and then the ability to be able to extend that to cover all of the new customizations that you put into the platform, trying to limit those customisations, but then to keep the coverage around that from an automated test point of view gives, I think, everybody beyond the developers a lot of confidence with the platform to know that when they put something live, that the amount of bugs that are going out are minimal or non-existent.
Well, and it brings down the total cost of ownership, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, over a 3 or 5 year duration, the whole total cost of ownership equation that you do when you're looking at new platforms comes right down when you've got less testing and...
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So before we get into the actual approach that you guys have taken, James and Mal, you guys, after having talked to you, you guys have been working with M2 for a long time, since essentially it's been in beta.
Yeah.
How has that impacted your approach or the tools that you've created to help clients move from M1 to M2?
Sure.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think that from a tooling perspective, for us to have been involved in it since the beta, showed us the direction that Magento was going with M2. It allowed us to, I think, what we consider get ahead of the curve, but also for our investment to invest in that tooling as well, has given us, when we look at an M2 project, the ability for us to estimate it, to look at the amount of effort that's required, what functionality is required and isn't required. It certainly has given us a bit of a leap, I think, in Magento 2. It also, I think, from just a pure developer point of view, has excited our developers as well. When someone's been working on a Magento 1 platform for a long time and they hear something new, all developers want to progress in their career, and Magento 2 is a good progression within their career, even if they're just a Magento 1 developer. So that's been exciting and really valuable to us.
And a large amount of our developers, including Mal, contribute to the community as well. So that excitement and interest is certainly important. Another thing I'd want to add, just on the tooling side of it, we've taken an approach internally, which we're calling Mantle, which is kind of a process approach, a consistent approach, which really looks at making sure that we're reusing and repeating things at work, that we're reducing the amount of time it takes to do things, we're automating as much as possible, and what that means for the clients is, and our partner clients, is that we're reducing the time to market, so it's a lot faster. It's a lot cheaper because we're starting to get faster and faster at what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that curve for us was really tough in the early days of Magento, when we're in beta, early days. But what's happened is that's really sort of accelerated, I think particularly beyond sort of 2.2, like it's really the ability to just do it a lot quicker and faster, and the price of it dropping down has really started to come to fore. So it's more for us like a migration now than a replatform.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That's great. And actually, that's a great transition. Let's talk a little bit about the process that you guys have implemented in this project. And having talked to you, I think there's, 5 facets of the approach, and I think it'd be great for you to share thoughts around each of them. So why don't we start with this concept of this broad organizational effort and the 360-degree kind of organizational effort. Right, Martina?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So I guess in previous project, a project of that size, the replatform for a company of our, or a retailer our size, is a massive undertaking. And in previous projects of similar size, we've learned the hard way that, if you don't engage your stakeholders across the business from different teams, it can go wrong quite easily. And by wrong, I mean scope can blow up brutally along the way when people have new requirements that they would like to have executed as well within the time frame, within the cost of the project, and obviously, for the end customer to work. So this time we've taken a slightly different approach internally, and we've actually made sure that we've got stakeholders from all areas of the business involved really early in those strategic conversations. We've taken sort of their expectations on board and, partially managed them back as well, but brought them on board so that they understand what the project is about, what is in scope and what is not in scope, and I think that's been a massive benefit so far in the project. And I guess just, if you want me to go on, on the Parity
sure.
Plus piece.
Parity Plus is well. Just before you move on, I think one of the things that James, you and I talked about was how it was both understanding what M2 can do, so that you get a better, richer requirements set, from the whole team.
Which James?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
James Dean. Yeah, sorry, James Dean.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, as Martina said, involving everyone across the business and understanding what's in and out of scope was hugely important. But it's also, you know, it's somewhat stating the obvious, but letting them know what the benefits to them will
Sure.
be as well. Because it's all well and good, you know, to pulling the rug out from someone that's used to doing something day in, day out. They've got their known ways of doing things, work around the constraints. But, you know, you're going to change everything. And, you know, there's multiple departments in our business, obviously, or any business that interface with the system, whether it's customer service, trading, marketing, content, supply chain.
Sure.
They all interface with Magento through this one window at the moment, and it's all changing,
Yeah.
both interface and workflow.
Yeah.
So bringing people along, running them through demo sessions in the early days, throughout the process, when assessing all of the other platforms as well, just bringing them across into multiple demos. But yeah, then really kind of selling them on the journey as well. So it's very much not a technical project, even though, you know, in its truest sense it is. But it's really about what it's going to bring to the business users, and then ultimately what it's going to do for our customers.
And part of that 360 approach for us was also to have change management and training of the teams to actually use the new platform, an integral part to the project, which in previous projects we hadn't considered as strongly. We've learned from that, and this time we've made sure, you know, change management is actually on the agenda as part of the project, so that we can have those demo sessions, preview sessions, having the balance guys also work with our dev guys internally and actually walking them through, well, how will this work when we're not here for you on an ongoing basis anymore? So it is really a 360 across the project for us.
Fantastic.
Just want to add something to that. I mean, we ran did a lot of surveys and workshops, which were, you know, cross-organisational. You know, talking about either the customer experience or the technical architecture, analytics, and we really tried to have a look at your existing environment, didn't we? And make sure that if there's anything we'd improve or remove or rescope or descope, we want to consider that within the framework. And I think that was, for us as a partner, it was a really important exercise, because we started to understand, you know, not only where your current state was, but also where you wanted to go.
Yeah, I think that one of the key words you used then was remove. You know, which I think might be counterintuitive, but, you know, that's we came at this project with a machete approach. You know, we've had M1 for years now. Like I said, it's kind of grown into this beast of a platform with, you know, dozens upon dozens of extensions and add-ons and technical debt and legacy code and, you know, all that fun stuff. So when we were actually engaging with the business users and looking at it from a technical implementation perspective, it was really about, well, what shit can we get rid of and just keep with the core? You know, what is the real important stuff that we need to make sure we retain? So one of the key mandates for the project has been, we will use out-of-the-box functionality wherever we can, even if that means changing the way you've done something historically. You know, you're going to have to get over it. There will be training involved. You'll have to evolve, change your processes, but ultimately it's going to be for the better, both from a platform, both from an operational
We actually
perspective.
came up with like a project manifesto, didn't we? Like a set of rules, and every time someone asks something, like, it doesn't work with the rules.
Yep.
Right. So that was, we've never done that before, and it's actually really good, because it's helped to manage the expectation of our developers, but also your stakeholders every step of the way.
And
Yeah.
it's helped keep our scope in scope as well, because whenever you get tempted quite easily with the shiny things out there, and you know, the capabilities you could unlock and all of everyone's wishes as well. But ultimately, having a parity plus approach of making sure that we actually, as a baseline, said we'll have equal or slightly greater functionality on Magento 2, but we won't go beyond that, and we'll remove any kind of third party that we can. We'll trim that all back to just the bare bones that we actually need, just to following the out-of-the-box approach that you mentioned. That mandate is really strict, and it's pretty much ever-present still in the project from day one till now at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting, because what, James, Dean, or Martina, I mean, what are your expectations in terms of having taken that strict out-of-the-box approach from, you know, the reduction of extensions and customizations? What are your expectations on that?
I think
Perhaps
from from an operational and strategic perspective for the teams, it means that they, to some degree, get a level of confidence of what they have now is going to function similar to the future, and we'll build on that in the future and enhance on it. But basically, we're transposing our house to a new house, but it's meant to have the same layout at the moment. but all those nooks and crannies that you don't really need in a house, strip them out, make it a bit cleaner and simpler, so that but still usable for our teams to actually trade our e-commerce sites. And I guess technical, it's a bit different from your end.
Yeah, well, it's just building on stable foundations at the end of the day. The more extra stuff you add, the more complexity, the more risk. So keeping things streamlined, as simple as possible, efficient.
Yep.
And it also benefits from a training perspective as well. If you're working with the core, then core training materials are going to work as well.
And the beauty with M2 from an M1.x versus M2.x perspective is, I think a lot of retailers that are on 1.x just don't realise how many new features there are in 2.x. Like, if you're out there in the audience and you're on 1.x, get a demo and really deep dive into 2.x and understand what's now in the core, because it's extensive, and a lot of the gaps and issues and problems that you had in 1.x, or if you're using extensions or plugins or custom code to solve, that's been de-scoped because it's actually in the core, which makes the whole thing more scalable, easy to regression test, etc., etc. So we've really taken that principle very seriously.
Yeah, and just to put a number on it, when we say we've cut stuff out and taken a machete, we've removed 80 customizations from M1 to M2. That's not 80 third-party extensions, but a lot of third-party extensions and a lot of custom modules that we've built in-house. But 80 have just been shot in the head. We just don't need them.
Yeah.
There's a developer out there somewhere.
Yeah.
It was a double tap.
Just on the Parity Plus thing, I just want to sort of add to that. So we sort of saw the project together as a team in three areas. One was current state, which is their 1.x current state. Parity Plus, which is the new project. And then future state. And everything we've done or talked about has been put in one of those pillars. And I think it'd be good for you guys to talk about. I mean, that was you brought that to the table, and we've loved it ever since. But do you want to talk a bit about why you took that approach? I think it'd be good.
The why, yeah. Well, for us, one of the reasons why we took that approach is we wanted to start with a solid foundation, but with a view to what the future is going to look like. And we can only do that if we had a plan for the future, but we could obviously not execute the future right away because we would have blown scope tenfold that way. So we said, okay, let's put in current state what we're actually going to deploy on the day when we go live with Magento 2. Let's put in future state, like the future roadmap. And then in between there's sort of Parity Plus state where we, I guess, have small little tweak. Well, no, that's before go live. Even there's a couple of quick wins that we identified that we could even unlock before we go to Magento 2. So we know what we have at go live, and we know what we want in the future that we work towards, but we also have a couple of small pieces that we can do right away that are actually going to take so little resources we can unlock the potential before we even deploy and go
And
live.
some of those come through the work that Magento BI did with us. Anita and her team came out and spent some time with us and the Katmandu crew and actually put a ruler over your data. We started looking at what was going on in current state, what some trends were, and I think some of the insights there were quite helpful, not only for current state and some quick win stuff that wasn't going to be sunk cost, but also as part of the scope. So that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The one item that we haven't touched on a little bit is this hybrid development model. Either Mal or James want to talk about that?
So usually when we deploy a Magento 2 project, it's all done in-house. And from a client perspective, they don't have any development resources. The great advantage of working with Katmandu is that they've got great development resources that go back many years and really understand their product. And part of the build of this migration was to take those resources as well, developers, and actually help them migrate to Magento 2 from a development perspective. So at the time of launch, the guys can adequately take over the site and run it just as they are today. So it was a matter of sort of working out a division of resource availability that we wanted and needed for the job. And we were lucky to get 3 guys from the Katmandu team. We put in a great training program up front. We taught them the basics of Magento 2, and then we run in an agile way. So we run through a sprint methodology. In that, at the start of the sprint, we do some training for each of the developers to bring them up to speed if there's anything specific to do with that particular sprint that we need to work on. And then they actually work on it with our team to deliver what's needed for that sprint. One of the great surprises around that is just to find how talented the guys are at Kathmandu, and it's been a joy for our developers to work with your developers as well. So it's something that we thought maybe might have a rub at the start, but it certainly hasn't. It's been a really enjoyable process, and we're all looking forward to working together to deliver something for Kathmandu at the end.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think, just to continue from Mal's comments, for us, it's been fantastic, and it reduces a lot of risk for us as well. So I manage an in-house team of 6 developers, and we're responsible for everything from online infrastructure to development. And to just receive an M2 project and then be expected to run with that after handover would be just fraught with risk for us. So by deciding to embed 3 guys into the project, and as Mal said, they're trained every sprint, they're delivering every sprint, it's reducing a lot of that risk, and we're able to keep pace and shorten timelines.
I mean, from a broader perspective, there's other opportunities, I think, in other partners and other merchants and retailers in the market to do similar things. And this is the first time we've done it to this scale and to this size, and we were a little anxious about, becoming one. But now that it's worked, I see this as a really amazing opportunity for merchants and retailers across the board to bring in, more resources, more technical resources in-house, and work directly with us, either front end or back end or both. And also to de-risk it, to move faster, to be a more team-orientated approach. And also, just from a cost perspective, reduce the total cost of ownership of the project over that 3 or 5 year period, which is a really critical thing. You take the work away from the agency and bring it in-house, and if you get it right, it actually means that you can innovate and move much faster. So I think it's a really important part of the business case perspective as well.
Yep, yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of minutes left, and I think what would be great to hear from each of you, maybe starting with you, Martina, is what kind of tips or learnings would you like to impart upon the audience as they're trying to consider and evaluate their own move from M1 to M2?
Yeah, to me, one of the key standouts, and this goes kind of to the first point on the slide in front of you, is that the level of depth of organizational involvement that we've had, both from a change management perspective, from a communication perspective, has really paid off so far. We've got, a massive amounts of internal ownership over the project. And I think as part of that 360 involvement of everyone in the company, there's a massive learning for us around expectation management on the executive level as well. So being very clear about having that very strict guidebook or rule book of how we're going to approach the change and the project is helping us communicate that to the executive level as well, and say, well, look, it is parity plus. There is no newness. Don't expect any great new things. We're just doing parity plus, and that's it, and everything else comes after. And it's a much easier message than, expectations always go up when you say we do something new, by definition. So that helps us sort of set those expectations and manage them throughout the project, and always defer back to the guidelines of the project. And that's been massively helpful for us. And I think for most retailers, that expectation management tends to get forgotten, or is sort of becoming a bit of a side note. But if in my role, at least, it's quite a relevant piece of a project, and I definitely recommend doing that.
Fantastic. James Dean?
I think it's to, I'm going to whip out my machete again. I think it's, fully understand exactly what M2 will give you, and then look at what you've got in M1 and just hack off the things that you don't need. Don't bring everything across just because you've used it in the past. Death to the status quo, challenge everything, and stick to the core as much as possible.
It's a great band name.
I'm going to say transformational migration. So I'm going to say we did a lot of digital strategy work with the Katmandu team up front to come up with a digital strategy plan, both on current state, parity plus, and future state. We ended up with, I think, 75 different recommendations, in 25 in each bucket, that we thought were tactical transformational strategies for the business long term. And by all of my team and our team understanding that, where they were going as well as what they wanted now, it's made the project, everyone understands from our expectational point of view what we're doing now and what we're going to do in the future. So lines up. Great.
Data migration is a huge thing. It's a real good advantage from M1 to M2. You can actually take your data from M1 to M2. It's not hard to do. There's a data migration tool out there. You can extend it to cover, 99% of the data that you need to transform across. Do it early. and you won't have a problem. Do it in an automated way so it's repeatable. It always checks it. Then by the time you launch, you'll be happy without stress.
Great, thank you. So I apologize, we didn't leave enough time for questions, but I'm sure the panelists will be here to answer some questions for a couple of minutes. But I do want to give a plug to the Balance guys. They have a session to continue the conversation around optimizing the move from M1 to M2. They have a session actually at 4 o'clock, is it?
Yeah.
Up in room 5.
Up in room 5 upstairs, yeah, at 4 o'clock. We're just going to sort of go a bit deep dive about top 10 tips, M1 to M2, so
Yep.
yeah.
So we continue the conversation there. So let's give a hand to the panelists.